Okay, good morning and aloha. Thank you so much for your patience. Sorry we're running a couple minutes behind. Thank you to everyone joining us here in person and those joining us online. Before we get to our speakers, just some quick introduction of special guests in the audience. From the U.S. Department of Education, we have Maria Rowan and her colleagues with the FEMA Interagency Recovery Coordination Team. From the Hawaii State Legislature, we have Maui Representative Justin Woodson, Chairman of the House Education Committee. From the State of Hawaii Board of Education, we have Board Chairman Warren Haruki. I believe from Maui County, we have Daryl Oliveira from MEMA. And then representing the developer and master developer and landowner for Pulelehua, we have Paul Subrata. We also want to thank the State Department of Transportation Airports Division for hosting us here today. Thank you so much. So this morning we're here to provide an update on reopening plans for our Lahaina public schools and to also make an announcement on our temporary replacement site for the King Kamehameha III Elementary School campus. So our first speaker this morning is Governor of the State of Hawaii, Governor Josh Green.
Mahalo. Aloha, everyone. Make a couple brief updates on multiple topics, and then we're going to move to our priorities today, which is education. So we're so grateful to have our leaders from the Department of Education, but you're going to hear from several of the top folks in our department, in our administration, and our partners in the federal government. So first off, we're day 49 since the crisis, and our hearts are still broken. We still are just deeply saddened by the loss of the 97 people that we know are gone. 89 have been identified, and there are 13 open investigations still. So mahalos to the Maui police and their team. They're doing extraordinary work. Also, a lot of other things to share. Yesterday was the first day where people were able to go back to their properties with the assistance of the county. 16 properties were visited by between 30 and 40 of those who escaped from those properties. They spent between 1 and 3 hours there. They did discover some of their heirlooms. They did begin to get closure. It was a very emotional setting, understandably. We're grateful to Chief Oliveira and his team. We're grateful to the EPA, who is aggressively clearing properties of toxic compounds to make this possible. Opening the road was important. Getting people back to their properties is important. Ultimately, finding homes for them and rebuilding homes will be important. So again, like I said, mahalo to everyone in that effort. Another major update, which we can get some additional details from Bob Fenton on, is the fact that the White House has approved our request to have 100%, that's 100% reimbursement for 6 months of the debris removal. This is very important to the state of Hawaii. It will save us hundreds of millions of dollars that we would otherwise spend from our local funds, which we may not have until we recover. And so we're so grateful to Bob, who's a constant advocate for us at the federal level, talking directly to the President and the U.S. Cabinet, as do I. We also have 3 months of 100% reimbursement for all of the emergency protection. Again, saves us tens of millions of dollars. Historically, we might only get 75% of that paid for, so their advocacy is extraordinary. We can't thank President Biden and his team enough. They really are supporting us in every way. Another thing that we announced recently was the reopening of West Maui to tourism on October 8th. This begins the process of recovery for Lahaina and its people. It is a very difficult decision. We expect a small fraction of the normal travelers to come to West Maui at that time. It's just the beginning. It's a lesson that we learned during COVID, which is if you're not clear about your message when you can reopen, it will drift. And month after month will pass, and people will not know on the mainland what is at least allowed. But we'll be absolutely compassionate, and we will not displace any survivors or their families for tourists. We will make every effort, no matter what, to take care of our people. But I do want people to know that that date is out there for a reason. It's about recovery, it's about healing. That will be 2 months after the fire began. Another important thing we want to talk about now is education. and education is going to be central to everything that we do for our keiki. We have to provide our students their education and their families an opportunity to get their kids back in school, because that is in many ways the most normal thing that our children do, which is to go to school, to have their meals, to see their friends. That's why I'm so excited that Superintendent Keith Hayashi will come up here and talk after I do. He will give you the details of that return. As you know, King Kamehameha III School was destroyed in the fire. We will be talking about longer term plans as well, but today we have this much needed ray of hope to open a school that will be a temporary school. Though it's a temporary site, it means that we can get a lot of support, once again, from the federal government, from President Biden, from FEMA. These are all incredibly important things. One more comment I want to make before I turn it over to our superintendent, and that's for financial support. There are going to be multiple ways for people to get financial support, and we want to make sure people are aware of each of them. We'll get into great detail later this week or early next week, but here's the basics. People, as you know, can get support for rent for a long time. We'll be moving people into more permanent housing as we go in the next several weeks and months. People should be patient because it's a little bumpy road. We're working very diligently on contracts with all sorts of longer-term rentals so that people can have a kitchen, they can have a living room, so they don't have to be in hotels. As of now, as you know, we have over 7,500 people in hotels. We're going to have fewer people in hotels and more people in long-term rentals until ultimately we rebuild. And we rebuild the way Lahaina wants to rebuild. Let's reiterate that. The way the people of this community want to rebuild is how we will rebuild. So that's one way to get money through FEMA. Another substantial way is through the American Red Cross. If someone is not a documented citizen, or if they perhaps are a COFA citizen, Compact Free Association of States, they will get monies from the incredible generosity that's come from all across our state and our country. So Red Cross dollars will go to them. And then finally, there's a program called Temporary Assistance for Needy Families, TANF. I've authorized $100 million to go to families. People will qualify, and ultimately they will apply through MEO, the Maui Economic Opportunity folks. They'll have an application. We'll give you more details later this week. We're signing that contract this afternoon. But we expect tens of thousands of dollars to go to each family who's in need, to pay for cars, to pay for housing, to pay for clothing, and to pay for food. So people will get through this way. It's a lot to take in, I understand, but I wanted people to get an overview of where we are here on day 49. Without further ado, we're going to now talk about education, and I'm so grateful that we have a diligent and excellent superintendent and a great board chair who's been working tirelessly to get this process going. Mahalo.
Thank you, Governor. Next we have Keith Hayashi, Superintendent of Hawaii Public Schools.
Thank you, Governor Green, and all of our partners for supporting and joining us here today. Our hearts continue to be with our Lahaina community as we recover and heal. A few weeks ago, at our community meeting here in West Maui, we announced a tentative goal of reopening our Lahaina schools after fall break. We explained that it would take what it would take to get to that point, with the health and safety of our students and staff being of the utmost importance. We have made positive progress to that point, as Governor Green has shared. We are announcing that we will reopen our Lahaina schools and bring students back starting October 16th, the day after fall break, beginning with Lahaina Luna High School. Next week, Thursday, October 5th, the last day for Lahaina Luna at their temporary site at Kulanihakoi High School in Kihei. Lahaina Luna staff will report back to their Lahaina Luna campus next week, Friday, October 6th, for a planning and work day without students. Fall break then begins and runs through October 13th. That following Monday, October 16th, students will return to Lahaina Luna High School. For faculty and staff at Lahaina Intermediate and our two elementary schools, they will also report to their Lahaina campuses for a planning and work day on Friday, October 6th. Kamehameha III will be sharing a campus with Princess Nahi'ena'ena Elementary, for the immediate future. After fall break, on Tuesday, October 17th, intermediate students will be welcomed back to the Lahaina Intermediate Campus. On Wednesday, October 18th, students from both elementary schools will be welcomed to the Princess Lahaina campus. A major reason why we're able to set these reopening plans is because of the partnership and consultation with the State Department of Health. We have done extensive environmental testing in the weeks since the fire, taking a close look at air quality, drinking water quality, and whether or not the grounds and soil at the 3 schools are safe for students and employees. We have worked very hard with experts in these different areas using specialized contractors and county, state, and federal resources to handle the testing and review and confirm the results, which are all posted on our website. Between now and until we reopen to staff and students, we'll be completing professional cleaning of all interior and exterior spaces and finalizing health and safety guidelines. We are also working to ensure all of the action items on our online status report can be upgraded to green, completed, from yellow, in progress. We know that while the majority of feedback from our staff and parents have been in favor of reopening the Lahaina campuses and resuming in-person learning once the schools are deemed safe, there are some who have expressed concerns about the proximity of our students to the impact zone, as well as concerns about the transportation near or through the impact zone. We'll continue to offer a virtual learning option through our state distance learning program, and families may also continue to keep their students enrolled in schools in Central and South Maui. We are assessing the hybrid learning hubs that have been operating north of Lahaina over the last couple of weeks and will continue to announce plans at a later time. Our hope is that by providing the reopening dates with about 3 weeks of lead time, families can use this information to make decisions that are in the best interest for their situation. As we continue to finalize the logistics and details, we'll communicate with families on such areas as bus transportation, school schedules, and health and safety guide for schools, similar to what we had during COVID, that outlines best practices and steps to take in various situations once we're back on the Lahaina campuses. Dr. Kenny Fink from the Department of Health and Kathy Ho, Deputy Director for Environmental Health, have worked very closely with us over the past few weeks. I'd like to welcome Dr. Fink up to please share the Department of Health's perspective. Dr. Fink.
Aloha kakayaka. The Department of Health has worked very closely with the Department of Education. We see the importance of having the keiki return to school, and if it's the parents' preference, to return to the school that they're most familiar with. It's for their well-being to get back into their routine and familiarity and have that sense of normalcy, but only if it's safe to return. So through extensive testing that has been described, have we determined that it is safe to actually proceed at this time. As was mentioned, there's professional cleaning of all the surfaces to ensure any debris that had gotten inside has been cleaned and remediated. From a drinking water perspective, we use multiple lines of evidence to make a determination that the drinking water is safe. And that has occurred by sampling from the treatment plant, from above the high school, and how that provides water to all 3 campuses. There's been no destruction or fire damage to any of the properties in that distribution area. There's no reported loss of water pressure, and multiple rounds of water testing have demonstrated the absence of any fire-related contaminants. So we're confident that the water is safe for drinking water. For soil, the department actually did not recommend soil testing if there's no visible ash, as was generally the case. but the Department of Education, out of an abundance of caution, wanted to do soil testing. And those results of the soil testing were, again, extremely reassuring. For the testing at Nahi and at Lahaina Intermediate, those soil results were all within standards and are clearly safe. For Lahaina Luna High School, there was an isolated finding in half the samples of a slightly elevated nickel level. And this is not uncommon in volcanic soil, and it's well below the EPA threshold. So we are confident that all those soil samples are safe for folks to return into those areas. Okay. Moving on to air. We have air quality monitors on each of the campuses and an additional monitor just Mackay of the bypass. Since those were set up weeks ago, they have consistently shown that the air quality is green. Air quality is good. And again, indicating that it's safe to return to the campuses. Now, as I've shared in some of the recent town halls, with a re-entry and potential disturbance of ash, that is the one thing we want to be sure we very closely continue to monitor. And we just placed an additional air monitor yesterday at the high school. So we will continue to work with the Department of Education on air quality monitoring and their plan in the unlikely event that the air quality should change. So we continue to support the Department of Education, and we're very happy to be at this point that we can confidently say it is safe for students and staff to return to the 3 campuses. Mahalo.
Thank you, Dr. Fink. Sorry, one second. Reintroducing Superintendent Backup.
Thank you, Dr. Fink. When we reopen after fall break, our Kamehameha Third staff and students will be sharing a campus with Princess Nahiena Elementary. This arrangement is designed to be a short-term solution using high-quality tents that are equipped with power and air conditioning, a wood floor, and create a comfortable teaching and learning environment. In the coming months, our Kamehameha Third students and staff will be able to relocate to a new temporary school site that will be built in the upcoming mixed-use development project known as Pulelehua, on a parcel right down the hill behind us. We want to acknowledge our federal partners at FEMA, which will be fronting the cost of this approximately $5 million campus as a temporary replacement for our Kamehameha Third Elementary School that was sadly lost to the fire. This temporary site will be used until a permanent school is built. We are appreciative to the master developer, Mr. Paul Chang, as well as to FEMA and the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, which will be building the temporary school. We would also like to thank our congressional delegation for their support. I want to acknowledge the support of our Board of Education Chairman, Mr. Warren Haruki, and of course, Governor Green, for helping to expedite this process and providing the leadership and support needed to make this happen. This site is centrally located within the existing attendance boundaries for the residential communities that Kamehameha III currently serves. Kamehameha III Principal Jennifer Everett has been involved in the planning to ensure that this temporary school site will best meet the needs of the students, families, and community, and also for our employees that it serves here in Lahaina. Mahalo.
Thank you, Superintendent. Next, we have Bob Fenton with FEMA. President Biden appointed Mr. Fenton as Chief Federal Response Coordinator to direct all federal operations in the state.
Well, thank you. Special thanks to Governor Green, Superintendent Haishi, and Health Department Director Dr. Fink, the Hawaii State Department of Education, and the Maui County educators and other officials for your leadership and encouragement and support. I'm also grateful to have a strong partner from the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers with Colonel Curry leading their efforts. That quickly answered FEMA's call for help to Lahaina in its recovery. And want to also thank the U.S. Department of Education's Disaster Recovery Unit, which was brought in to assist the temporary school install project. We have come together because we share a common concern for the schools, the damage and the destruction that's happened from the wildfires. And as a parent of 2 children, I understand these are not just buildings. These are centers for their education, their social development, and their future. That is why one of our major priorities at FEMA and our partners here on Maui is to make it possible for hundreds of school children to return to the classrooms. Recognizing this, FEMA has tasked the Corps of Engineers with a mission assignment to install temporary elementary schools in Lahaina. The temporary school will serve as a replacement to the King Kamehameha School, and once finished, it will not only provide classrooms, it will be a visible sign of Lahaina's recovery. As plans progress to restore Lahaina schools, we hope to give the school children of Lahaina and their families proof of our commitment to their recovery. We want to be partners in the effort to help restore the learning, and we want to determine how we can support these projects when unexpected needs come up, like this rain. Thanks, Governor. We want to be partners in the effort to help restore in-person learning, and we want to make sure our commitment is known in Maui's recovery. In conclusion, FEMA and its fellow partners will continue to support the state and our county partners until the job's done. The first step is installing the temporary school. We will give children a place to get back to a much-needed routine, and FEMA will be here and will continue until we get the job done. Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Do you guys want to pause or keep going? We have one more speaker. Keep going? Okay, Gov says keep going. Our last speaker is Colonel Jesse Curry, Recovery Field Office Commander for the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers.
Well, good morning. Thank you, Governor Green, State of Hawaii, and Department of Education for having me here today. I'm incredibly proud to speak on behalf of the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, the Pacific Ocean Division, the Honolulu District, and representing a small but incredibly important part of the DoD support of this historic recovery effort. I know I share the sentiment with everyone here today how important this project is to the community as it recovers from this disaster. This is only one step on the path of that recovery, but it is a critical one. The children of Lahaina have gone through a heartbreaking trauma, and the Corps of Engineers, the Department of Defense, and our partners are proud to play a small role in bringing back a bit of normalcy to these young lives. This FEMA mission assignment empowers us to leverage our expertise to oversee the design and installation of these temporary school facilities, and we have made rapid progress working with the State and Department of Education to identify the specific requirements and scope of this project. As of today, we estimate this project will take about 95 days. This timeline includes working with the Department of Education to finalize the specification and design, and finding contractors who will perform the site preparation and install those temporary facilities. We are committed to getting this project done well and expediently, and we look forward to working with our contracted partners once they are identified. Once our contractors begin work, they will ensure the site's access to critical utilities such as water, electricity, and sewer, along with any necessary land adjustments. The groundwork then allows for the installation of the temporary facilities like classrooms and faculty areas. The final design of these facilities is still in development, but they will be designed in accordance with the State Department of Education square footage and capacity guidance. Then when the temporary facilities are installed, we get to the good part. No, really the great part, getting kids back into the classroom. Personally, and I think I speak for the whole of the USACE team here, this is the reward of the hard work to make projects like this possible. This school may be temporary, but will stand as a reminder that despite grief and loss, Lahaina's children will have a space to continue to learn, to dream, and to thrive. We are proud to be here, proud to see them proceed through this process and be in this moment. Mahalo, thank you. It's my honor and privilege to be here among you. I will add that as a son of an elementary school teacher and a father of 5 myself, it's especially impactful and humbling to get to be a part of this process, to bring this temporary facility and a key step in healing to Lahaina to the community. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much to our speakers, and we'll go ahead and take questions from media.
Christian CBS. This question is for the superintendent. The last update I had in communication with your department suggested that at least 104 students from the Lahaina schooling complex had yet to be accounted for. Perhaps it was updated on the website, but what's the latest as far as accounted students goes? How many have you not reached? What efforts are being taken to reach out to them?
No, you summarize.
So just to summarize, to paraphrase, the question is that what is the number of students? What is the current number of students that we have yet to make contact with? Out of the initial 3,001 students in the Lahaina complex, we have been able to touch bases and verify with families. The number that we have not yet been able to connect with is about 45 out of the 3,001. We have, but we continue to reach out and to see what connections we can make with those families.
One follow-up. What's the theory behind those students not being able to get contacted? I suppose families move. They don't just personal reasons. What's the leading theory on why you can't account for them? And what active efforts do you have as far as reaching out to them?
We continue to, as far as what is, to repeat the question, what are our theories in terms of why we haven't been able to connect to those 45 students, and what active efforts we continue to utilize. As far as the active efforts, we will continue with our homeschool liaisons on the ground in the schools. Our school staff and our state office staff will continue to reach out in various means to support and connect with those families. In talking with some of the folks, we understand that each family may be addressing various challenges in different ways. For some families, we've heard that they may not be ready yet to connect and reconnect, which we understand. So we are giving them time. For others, they may have moved, may have not left a current contact, updated contact information, but nonetheless, we'll continue to strive to make connections with them. Thank you.
Yeah, if we can keep the questions to the announcements for starters. Melissa, Maui News.
Here. Timeline about coming in their third student. You guys think wonderful to hear it's 95 days for construction build out. But when are we thinking to have the kids back in school?
Okay, so question for maybe Colonel Curry. Question is a firmer timeline on rebuilding of the temporary site for Kamehameha.
Yeah, thank you for the question. For the actual build timeline is what I shared in that 95-day window. We are certainly early in the process, and ultimately starting off with taking our lead from Department of Education as we kind of finalize that design. There are other requirements, obviously, for a facility like this that are continuing to be developed as part of that design, but also in cooperation with the county and the state on the infrastructure requirements, so power, sewer, water, all those things that the kids need in order to have a school that will support them throughout the day. So beyond that 95-day, I certainly would hesitate to make any specific date promises because of those particular variables. But I can tell you that our goal is to complete this as quickly as possible. That's a benefit I think that the Corps of Engineers is able to bring, and as well as tremendous cooperation from the state and the county makes that goal something that we're all very optimistic about.
So when the superintendent brought this proposal to me, and we decided within, I think, 48 hours that this was the right way to go, we did it because we have to do a lot of things in parallel. We are getting our people housed, we're getting our financial situation in order, we're beginning the long-term plan for housing, and then education. So what we're hopeful for by making that decision in early September, which is when we decided internally that we could do this with the Army Corps, we could be building October, November, December, January, and then when we get through the holidays, we're hopeful to get kids back in school. We know how important it is. We just really do. And we know things will be crowded at the elementary school, even though we're expanding some capacity there. This community is very tight. It's unbelievably resilient after what it's gone through. So we know that this is just another piece of the recovery.
Governor, question for you. Could you just address any concerns that were received, conflict of interest regarding Mr. Rugi's role on the school board and his relationship to that site, which we believe is currently assumed is owned by Maui Land and Pineapple, his role there?
Sure. I'll make a very brief comment. I don't have any concerns because this is a temporary school, for one thing. It's a very upstanding gentleman, and we're putting students first. If anything, the utilization of a property with a temporary school, it actually puts quite an impact on that school territory, that temporary school grounds. A lot of developments wouldn't want actually to put a school necessarily right there in such short order with this amount of work that's going on to recovery. So honestly, I think we just really are trying to do anything we possibly can. Again, this is a temporary school, which after we've gotten kids settled, then we'll begin the much longer conversation about the permanent school. But just for clarity, FEMA supports temporary solutions. The long-term solutions will have to be up to the community and up to the county.
Just since you mentioned FEMA real quickly, using federal FEMA contractors or local contractors here in Hawaii to do that site?
Do you want to? We'll get a little more clarity for you. We are using the Army Corps, but here, please come by.
Yeah, so the temporary building is being used by Army Corps. They could address, their contract vehicle and how they're doing that. But I would just say overall, one of the things we try to do in FEMA is contract locally as much as possible with our grants. It's built into what we try to do. A lot of our grants that go to state, local governments, different public entities, and it's really their responsibility. We do require they use federal contract guidelines in doing that. But we want to bring as much economy back to Maui as possible, and understanding that the money that we're providing here to help recover can be used also to directly support local businesses, local jobs, all those kind of things. I think you're already seeing that, and if you look at EPA and what they're doing for hazardous removal, over half of their staff are individuals hired locally here in Hawaii. The Corps of Engineers, in addition to the temporary buildings, going to remove debris, and they'll be looking to reach out to many local vendors here. So that's something that we do everywhere we go.
Hi. Oh, sorry, 1 second.
Yeah, just real briefly, I can add to our commitment to use local businesses to construct this. So part of the process now that the Corps of Engineers has this assignment is we're conducting market research now to determine what local companies are available in order that can do this work. Again, it's part of our process, so certainly premature to talk in any specifics, but I can assure you that we are committed to using local contractors, Native Hawaiian, small business, all those that we can here to be a part of this effort.
Question is, how long will the temporary school be used, and what is the timeline on building a permanent school replacement?
Thank you for the question. Once the temporary school is up, definitely we want to be sure that we can get our students in, get the supports necessary for our kids. The process and the discussion that we'll have that involves community, as Governor had mentioned, will be a process where we'll engage community members and seek funding for the permanent site. So as far as the timeline, it would be premature at this point to specify an exact number of years. Thank you.
How many kids
Yeah. The capacity for the temporary school mirrors what King Kamehameha III enrollment was, so it's approximately 600 students. Thank you.
So once again, just so people understand, rebuilding is going to take years. And we know it takes years to build large school facilities, to open them up. We know it takes years to build permanent housing. So we're doing a lot of this in parallel, which means decisions get made after lots of internal discussion. We make sure the decisions are sound over the course of a couple weeks, and then we go. That includes the school. We're going to have some temporary shelter for individuals who were homeless before the crisis occurred, and we have to have these contracts for thousands of housing units. It's not at all a simple process, but it's made a lot easier by having people that really care about Hawaii and who have decided that they are going to be here till the end, and that includes Bob Fenton, President Biden, and everybody. I mean, they're committed to us, so we don't have to ask those questions. Will there be money? Will there be support from the county? We're grateful to our mayor here and the support that he gets, because he's begun, as you see, to have these very large town hall meetings, not just to talk about the details of recovery, but to hear from people in the earliest phase of their psychological recovery of what might fit for Lahaina. But we have to do a lot of this in parallel, so expect us to be doing many things at once.
Sorry, I have a question from a viewer online for Dr. Fink. Can you be specific about what toxic substances are being monitored in the air, water, and soil at the schools, and is there a person or agency responsible for continuing to monitor that?
Okay. The Department of Education has posted all their test results on their website, so that's available for the public to see. Some of the so they looked at a wide range of chemicals, from heavy metals to volatile organic compounds, and again, those would all be listed in detail on those websites that I would refer people to. The ongoing monitoring, the risk is primarily through the air. Now that we've shown the water is safe and the soil is safe, there's not concern for repeat contamination of those. Again, as was discussed at the town hall, the residential ash, so not the grassland ash, but the residential ash, where there was burning of more industrial type materials, is where there are potential hazards. And while the air is clear, should the ash get disturbed and into the air, that's the potential risk. So to monitor for that, we look for particulate matter, which is essentially a proxy of measuring for ash in the air. And that's what those air monitors are looking at, so particulate matter. And those are streamed online at fire.airnow.gov, and people can look and see how those monitors are currently showing. And that's where the continuing monitoring is most important and will continue to occur, and why we're continuing to work with the Department of Education to have a plan in the event that there should be any change to the air quality. Yeah. So let me see if I get your question correct. It's to understand the impact on children and families with the repeated movement.
Yeah.
Is that correct?
As a maybe physical, psychological challenge.
Yep. There's no question these children and families have been through an extraordinarily traumatic event. And for many of them, it will take weeks and months to process, if not longer. And while folks are working on their basic necessities of shelter, they may not yet have a chance to fully be able to process. As some folks are just beginning to return to the impacted area, they're now just starting to be able to really grieve to see that. So this is going to be a lengthy process, and there's lots of supports that's available. So there's on-site behavioral health support at the zones as people re-enter. There's additional behavioral health supports at the Lahaina Comprehensive Health Center and also at the Department of Health Mental Health Center in Wailuku. Through our partners, there's other supports at the hotels. So there's lots of behavioral health support for the environment. Another advantage for the children to be back at school is the way that the children can more readily access mental health supports as well. So I know that this has been a priority for the Department of Education, and the Department of Health has also been working with the Department of Education to ensure mental health support for the children as they return to school. Getting folks stable into a stable routine is important for their recovery. So while the movement has created uncertainty to the extent that now they can be in schools in a predictable way and get into a routine, be with folks from their community, and try and get that sense of normalcy, I think that's going to be extremely positive. On one note, multiple folks have shared with me that Lahaina is crazy about their football. So to be able to have these students and their families back on that football field for their first home opener, I think will bring a lot of healing toward the community, and I very much look forward to that game.
Another thing that Dr. Fink and I were able to do was speak to Secretary of Health and Human Services Becerra early in the response to this disaster. And Secretary Becerra has promised to help us with some of the SAMHSA grants, which are mental health grants going forward. We're going to avail ourselves of those where we can. We've brought a lot of additional support from some of our medical partnerships out there. The National Psychology and Psychiatry Associations have reached out to us also. But the best way for us to heal is to achieve normalcy. So the multiple layers of normalcy, which some of them were mentioned: school, a big deal; work, the kind of standard of going back to work and getting back into routines; the opening of West Maui to some work and some normalcy will help people with their mental health. That is very important. I know it can be stressful, but it also can be a way to deal with the crisis and have other things to focus on, so work in advance of the holidays. That was very important to me and our team. So we're looking at this from a multi-phased way. It's not just having a provider, but we will make sure that we stand up, again, health facilities that burn down and have extra facility support over at Maui Memorial if we have to. So all of this is going to factor into the healing. We are certain that people are going to go through the grieving process for some time.
Okay, final question? No? Okay, that concludes our news conference today. Thank you very much.